there are 5 themes that begin to emerge, these 5 themes that characterize the followers of Jesus. And these 5 themes are things that we can aim to do in our relationship with him, and that we can aim to increase and see in our lives in greater measure. Those 5 things are being, forgiving, serving, giving, and going. Today we're talking about forgiving, which I know is everyone's favorite. Yeah, there is something about forgiving that does cut to the heart of us as people. I just wonder for you this evening, is there anything that if it came out at this point in your life, you would be embarrassed? You would be ashamed. Things that you know were wrong, and yet you did it anyway. Anytime I think about this, I always go back to this one incident. I was supposed to go pick up my little sister from the airport. Inevitably, I was running late. And so I pull into the parking garage and there's like no spots. And so I'm just like losing my mind, of course. And finally, I see this spot open up. I'm pulling up and I realize, okay, the angle's a little sharp. It's not quite right. And no, I'm gonna make it. And my front right bumper just right through the doors of the car in the parking spot next to me. And I'm freaking out at this point, and I feel awful, and I'm in a hurry because my sister's expecting me, and I'm like bumbling around. I have nothing to write on, nothing to write with, and so I leave. And I go get my sister, and when I come back out to the parking garage, they are gone. And there's nothing I can do about it at this point. To this day, I feel awful because that was a lot of damage. And I don't know how they missed it, but they did. So there's things in our lives that when we look back, we can't undo them. We can't change it. A lot of the time, we just try to kind of hide it and bury it. It doesn't actually go away, does it? And if that was brought out here in the open for everybody to see, man, what would that be like? Well, that's the experience that we're going to read about in the passage today. Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. At dawn, he appeared again in the temple courts where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." Think about what this must have been like for her. They burst in, they say, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery." So they've got the evidence. In the law of Moses, it commanded us to stone such women. And they look at Jesus, "What do you say?" Actually, the law says it this way: "You shall take both the man and the woman to the gate of that town and stone them." That's in Deuteronomy chapter 22. Where's the man? They were caught in the act. They would have known who he was. There's a double standard. The reality is this pattern still happens today, that the behavior of men is excused as adventurous. Boys will be boys. And if women act in the same way, she's shamed with name calling, blamed as a temptress. The hypocrisy and the double standard right from the moment they enter the temple. Here's this woman, vulnerable with her sin out there in the open for everyone to see. Apparently no one there to defend her, not even the guy who's guilty with her, but the men who are accusing her don't care. She's just an incidental pawn in this bigger game that they're trying to play with Jesus, where they're trying to trap him. "Come on, Jesus. It says we're supposed to stone such women. What do you say?" Jesus has a reputation for mercy, for forgiveness, for hanging out with sinners. What will Jesus do? Kneel down and draw on the dust. And there's a lot of debate about what Jesus is actually writing at this moment, and they keep pushing him. And so Jesus stands up finally. "If any one of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw a stone at her." Jesus doesn't pretend she hasn't sinned. Jesus upholds the law. He invited them to actually do it. We're told those who heard what Jesus had said, they begin to go one at a time. Jesus straightens up again after everybody's left. It's Jesus and this woman. How quiet must it have gotten? Face to face with Jesus. I'm not even sure she could breathe. What's he gonna do to me? Because God's clearly disappointed with me. Ever had that thought? And he says to this woman, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" No? No, sir. Only words from her in the whole passage. And Jesus gave her a voice in that moment. "No, sir. No, sir. Then neither do I condemn you." The only one in this room who was without sin, who could be the one to cast that first stone, yeah, that's me. I choose not to condemn you. Let's think about your life. Think about those things at the beginning that, hey, if those came out publicly, if those came out in the open, what would that then do? Think about those places of unholiness, unworthiness, unlovableness. Think about all of that. And if she is not condemned, where does that leave you? Jesus is saying, I don't want to condemn you either. There is forgiveness for you, and there is no sin so grievous, so great, so big, so small, that Jesus did not come to take away the condemnation, the guilt, the shame, the embarrassment, the regret, and eliminate it so that you don't have to carry it. What do we do with this reality that you are not condemned? When we step into this week on forgiving as a practice, as something we do, this is a growing reality in our culture today. A total lack of forgiveness. It's become a way of life that, you know what? No, forgiveness, that's weak. And the reality is forgiveness, it's hard. I think that's part of why we justify it. Forgiveness is unfair because it always costs the one that forgives dearly. It is this experience that this woman has that I believe is the true basis that will give us what we need in order to forgive. But I just said a moment ago, forgiveness costs something. What did it cost in this moment for this woman? She was supposed to be stoned to death. See, this is the beginning of chapter 8, and later, at the end of chapter 8, Jesus is gathered with those same religious leaders, and they've now turned on him and they want to stone him to death. There's a cost to her sin, and that cost was not just erased as if the cost no longer existed. Jesus ultimately is the one who was condemned and killed. He suffered, he absorbed the cost and the weight of those consequences when he died on the cross for her. He bore the cost of our forgiveness. It's paid. That he bore the cross, the weight of that, so that I didn't have to. It humbles me. We can walk away as this woman did with a renewed confidence for life, a renewed confidence to live differently, a renewed confidence to call sin, sin, to not excuse it when people sin against us, to not just call for condemnation and judgment and vengeance, but to actually forgive. It's painful, and I will carry the cost. I forgive you. I can't pass by this week without asking the question, do you think she forgave herself? I hear it a lot. I can't forgive myself. I'll never forgive myself. When we live that way, we demonstrate that the cost that Jesus absorbed on the cross wasn't enough. See, this is the fuel, the foundation to move into this week of forgiving, is to know that the cost is incredible for your forgiveness and mine. The cost is what Jesus endured for us. But he endured that so that we could be set free from this condemnation that we carry from ourselves, the condemnation that we would carry from other people. He sets us free to humbly interact with the other people in our lives and realize that Jesus also died for them, that his death was enough to pay the cost for their sin also. And so we can then become people who are transformed from the inside to be forgiving people.